Bring to us your poetry from inspiration sought. Come join us with your images, your verses, words, and thought. From here, we'll share your balladry with those who do not know it. This platform's here for you to show the world that you're the poet.
Welcome to episode 58 of You're the Poet, the poetry podcast featuring you. I'm host Matt Burgio, and I'm here with co-host Phil Burgio. Phil, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Here at You're the Poet, our purpose is to share our love of poetry with the world and invite you to do the same. We want to start by saying thank you to all of our listeners who have made You're the Poet possible. We hope you enjoy the podcast and the poetry that is shared here. If you've written any poetry and you want to share it here, whether you just have an interest in poetry, consider yourself an amateur poet, or are a professional poet with published works, contact us to be a guest on a future episode. Our featured guest for this episode of You're the Poet is Stasha Strange, who is joining us from Northeast Ohio. Stasha, welcome to You're the Poet.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We're glad you could be here, and we look forward to your contribution to the episode. To start things off, I'm going to share a classic poem for the episode. Today I'm sharing a Robert Frost poem that a lot of people are familiar with, and I think most people are familiar with American poet Robert Frost. But this is his poem Fire and Ice, and I was drawn to want to share this poem for a couple reasons. One, poet Tara Hicks mentioned it on her episode, and it had me thinking about the poem. And then recently, we got an early snowfall here in Ohio, and it looked like it came super early because the ground was covered in snow, but then there were bright red and orange and yellow leaves on top of the snow, and it looked like fire on ice, and it inspired me to write a poem that I was going to share today, but I'm not finished with yet, so hopefully that'll be shared in the future. But I decided to stick with this poem. And here Robert Frost is talking about the destruction of the world and with human emotions. This time of year, for me, especially with my Catholic faith, as we draw towards Christmas and we think about Advent and sort of the end of the world and end times, this was also on my mind. So, without further ado, here's Fire and Ice. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. Robert Frost.
Okay. We got to do some more upbeat reading here, but that's kind of not depressing, but like thought-provoking. Just before he read that, before we got on, I checked YouTube, and Robert Frost is reading his own poetry. And I love listening to that on YouTube. You know, going to the old poets that have recordings and listen to their poems. But that's a good, I like that. It's just a good thought. It's, you know, like a poetic thought.
I love most of Frost's works. I've been getting into the very nerdiness of different forms lately. So I noticed that this one kind of is a blend of iambic tetrameter and dimeter, which I like. And I liked that the brevity becomes part of the message.
I like that as well.
And I don't think it's nerdy. I do like the old forms. I think it's like a puzzle. I love doing puzzles. And so it's like a haiku. That's a puzzle. Rhyming poetry. I do a lot of rhyming poetry. It's a puzzle. I do free verse also, but you know.
I love rhyming, and some poetry scenes a real dislike for it. And I thought, gosh, where did I get onto rhyming poetry?
Why would somebody dislike it?
There are a lot of people who I've been turned down by many places because they're like, do you have anything that doesn't rhyme? Because I also have a fondness for it. And then I think back and I'm like, it had to be one of two. Either it was Dr. Seuss or Shel Silverstein or both.
Right. Poets.
Yeah. I have a sweet spot for it.
Well, it's funny. Right before the episode started, Phil and I were musing on the fact that so much of the poetry we see is all free verse, that nobody's writing in forms anymore. And, you know, we like the form, like Phil said, we like the puzzle and the challenge. And I also think it keeps poetry fresh because you can always be looking up new forms and trying new things and working on your meter and rhythm and things. And don't get me wrong, there's definitely a place for free verse, and we've both, Phil and I, have written free verse.
Both read it, yeah.
But we're not people that are against the form or against rhyming. And I think some people think it comes off as cliche, or, you know, maybe the rhymes don't fit, or they're forced rhymes.
People that can't do it.
But I mean, I think there's a legit there. Sometimes you'll come across that. But I do notice that a lot of people sort of frown on the forms or on the poetry that rhymes. But I think there's good ways to do it. And it's funny you mentioned Dr. Seuss. We were talking about that in episode 4 with Mark McDermott. About a lot of his poetry has that Dr. Seuss feel and flow to it. And definitely all of us that grew up in the era that I grew up in love Shel Silverstein and his work.
Well, I tutor children on the spectrum in reading, and those are the two authors I go to the most that will get that light to come on for those kids who have a difficult time reading. They grab onto the meter of the rhyme, and I just see their faces light up and they run with it and they get so into it. I don't see how anyone could dislike that.
It's like my beer poem, my Dr. Seuss beer poem. I dedicate it to Sam and the Cat. It starts off, I like my beer, I really do, and then it goes on.
So I wanted to ask you guys before we move on, if you were to favor fire and ice for the end of the world, did you have a preference on which you think it might be?
Which it would be or which I would prefer?
Let's say which you would prefer.
I'd prefer ice.
I prefer not. Ice. Yeah, ice.
Why
I picked ice because I can always put it in some bourbon before I pass over.
Assuming the ice comes before you freeze.
That's true.
Well, freezing is less painful than burning because at some point when you're getting hypothermic, you do eventually get numb.
I do like the fact with ice, too, that ice sustains, whereas I feel like fire is destruction and destroys and changes your form. If the world just froze over and we were all sort of frozen in time, it would be kind of almost artistic in a way.
Ice is a preservative, gives you a second chance.
Yeah, to unleash some bubonic plague we've never met before.
Right. All right. Well, from here, I'm going to turn it over to Phil to share his poem for the episode.
Okay. Speaking of cold, this poem is called Cold Autumn Breeze. A cold autumn breeze has branches rustling and shaking leaves. A reminder of winter's wrath will soon be here on a northern path. Enjoy the colors of the leaves under a blue sunlit sky as they blend and weave. And under the moonlit bright with sparkling stars above, watch fires glowing in the night. Philip Burgio.
All right. Thank you.
Very nice. I read it a few times and I like the personification. I feel like that's kind of the spine of it. Like the branches rustling and the shaking leaves, and it animates the landscape.
Yeah, for me, I've just been thinking about all this weather we've been having lately, and it's definitely been a lot of these cold autumn breezes, and I try to find the beauty in everything in all the seasons we have here. So even when we get these cooler, cold autumn days, I like to try to find the beauty in it.
Yeah. I didn't have seasons for 30 years, so
Wow.
I've been enjoying them. They remind me when to hibernate and when to go enjoy the lake and all that.
Yeah, I like Ohio because they give all the seasons. Lake Erie, I love Lake Erie.
I'll agree with you today when we're into like the sun's been out for a month and then it snows again.
Yeah, we're in Ohio.
And lake effect.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so tired of like the weather's never right. And everyone goes, yeah, because there's lake effect. I'm like, why are we even checking the weather then if it's never?
Well, you're on the west side. If you're on the east side, you get a whole lot more lake effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode with Indra Iyer about seasons and people that miss the seasons because they talked about living in South Texas and not getting to see the leaves change in the fall or not seeing any snow. And so now that they're back in Ohio, they love the fact that they get to see the seasons and experience them.
Yeah.
All right, well, speaking of the different seasons, I'm going to share my poem for the episode. And for this, I'm jumping into winter, even though Thanksgiving hasn't even hit yet, although will by the time this episode comes out. It has snowed here. We've experienced a snowfall. So I decided, you know what? Even if it's early, I'm going to share one of my winter poems.
You like snow.
This is called As the Snow Begins to Fall. Winter dawns across the land. The wind chills us one and all, and ends the autumn season quick with nary any stall. The flakes they sparkle drifting down in sizes big and small. The sun sleeps, the moon's awake, and rises full and tall. 'Tis the season of the year when people deck the hall, and when I want you nearest me as the snow begins to fall. We watch the moon light up the snow on yard and garden wall. I gather some up in ungloved hand to form it in a ball. We take turns with throws and ducks throughout our frozen brawl, until the cold drives us inside and back to bed we crawl. We'll share the warmth of cuddled dreams, the sandman's soon on call, and hold each other through the night as the snow begins to fall. Matthew Burgio.
Good. I like that.
I like it. Very lyrical.
This was actually a poem I wrote based on another poem I wrote in terms of the form, where I found it interesting to take one rhyming sound. Every line ends with the same rhyme sound. we talked about rhyming poetry earlier and sort of the difficulty that could face and whether or not it makes sense or are they forced. So it's definitely a challenge when, every line has to rhyme with each other. I based this off another poem where I had done that. I was like, let me see if I can do that again.
In my notes, I wrote that the regular ABCB rhyme scheme of this poem in each stanza really creates a sense of warmth that mirrors the comfort you are finding in companionship when winter comes. I thought it was solid. I was surprised when you said you weren't done working on it, actually.
Oh, that's not this poem. This is a different poem.
Oh, I was like, really? This one seems great.
Thank you. I wrapped this one up back in 2014.
Nice.
So listen to this poem. I got the impression of, well, there's a cartoon character, Hagar the Horrible. He's a Viking. And a cartoon that sticks in my mind, the comic, is his yard is just littered with all kinds of crap, right? And then when it snows, all this stuff is covered by snow and it turns into like statues and really pretty things. Like the snow blankets the badness and just makes everything beautiful.
Nice. Yes, Phil mentioned I love the snow.
Ever since he was a little kid. I'm his father, by the way.
Oh, I thought you two were brothers, actually.
No.
We get that a lot.
We get that a lot now. I'm his daddy. He tricked me into this. I was his first guest, and he introduced me as the co-host. It's like, what? So I'm his co-host. But I like it. I enjoy it. It gives me something to do.
Hey, it's got him consistently writing poetry again.
Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant.
I just finished one today, which I'll probably read on the next episode.
Nice. All right, well, from here, we're going to move to our guest portion of the episode. Stasha, you're the poet. Show us what you've got.
All right. This one is called Lullaby for the Watchers. Birdsong unscrews the sky, each note a hinge turned gently. My eyes close slowly, clouds stitching their weight into the backs of my knees. I pledge myself to the small things, moth wings, beetle hum, the secret ache in grass. Fireflies blink in Morse, or maybe it's laughter. Gold light clings to the oak bark like old blood. The cardinal preaches at the fence. The robin forgets her name. A vulture sprawls in benediction, sun-drunk, wings cruciform. Somewhere between the fence and the trees, the air pauses, holding its breath, taking my measure in shadow and gold. The light leans heavier, stretching toward the last soft place it can find. Stasha Strange.
All right, thank you for sharing. A lot of good imagery there, and I like that concept of the watchers. And I don't know if that's supposed to be the speaker in the poem watching or all these elements of nature watching what's going on around them, but either way you take it, I think it's an interesting concept.
I like the line about the fireflies, Morris, are laughing. It's good imagery. And the turkey vulture. I'm a birder, so I like things about birds.
I'm also a birder.
Oh, okay. Have you been to McGee Marsh?
I have not.
You got to go, especially in May.
Have you been to the Ohio Bird Sanctuary in Mansfield?
I have not.
All the proceeds from my anthology go to them. They're amazing.
Oh, okay. Excellent. We'll have to bring that up later. You can talk about your anthology in that.
To answer your question about the Watchers, I wrote that poem in the first spring I had here with the backyard, and there's woods behind our yard. And at first I was the watcher, but I was writing quietly for so long on the deck that suddenly I was the watched.
Very cool.
Especially when the feeders aren't filled up. They go, hey, give me some food. I have a sign in my yard that says Wild Bird Sanctuary. Actually, at my Wild Bird Sanctuary now is part of Matt's land. I gave him some land.
Very nice. The bird watching here is stellar.
Oh, yeah. Lake Erie. I got so many. You got to get over to McGee Marsh during warbler season in May.
I'm writing it down. I did go see the heron nesting area.
Okay.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, but a lot of great imagery here. Great way to describe the different things, too. He mentioned the fireflies, but, I even like the cardinal preaches at the fence and the robin forgets her name. I thought that was an interesting line.
Yeah, we kind of segued from poetry to birding, but hey.
The bulk of my poems, not the bulk, but a good majority lately have included birds because I am so often out birding.
Mm-hmm.
My book covers have secret birds if you just look for them.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Bill has gotten me into birding over the years. I haven't been as into it as he has been, but we went on a chase to find or to see a snowy owl once.
Yeah.
That was a good memory. So I've enjoyed birding myself, and I've got a couple poems about birds as well.
Hey, got another one for us.
Okay, this one, I wrote this for a class. They made us write a poem the first week and didn't tell us that we'd be using it for the rest of the semester. So this poem has been written in probably 20 different forms.
Oh.
And funny enough, I couldn't pick which one I liked best. So I kind of eeny, meeny, miny, moed it to submit. And this poem just got me my first ever pushcart nomination.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like, that poem? There's 20 different. Great. Okay. Uh, this poem is called Feathered Dislocations. I wanted to be soft, a moss bed, milk spill, open mouth of morning. But softness here rots fast. The teeth find it. The world choose tenderness first. So, mask, crow stitched, iron in the throat, smile sharpened into survival. I do not know the measure. Too much yielding and the wolves enter. Too little and I burn the room with my silence. People call me fierce as if it were a compliment, as if it were not a scar that learned to speak. Listen. I am a door slamming and a hand reaching at the same time. I am off-putting only because I was pushed again and again. Naive girl, ghost girl, she lingers under my ribs. She wants to hum lullabies, but all that comes out is crow call, bone echo, the spell of not dying. This is how I survive. Half mask, half wound, all flame. Stasha Strange.
All right, thank you.
You have a good delivery, Stasha.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, a lot of good imagery here. I love the mask stanza there, the so mask, the crow stitched, ironed in the throat, smile sharpened into survival. That and a lot of good lines. Well done here.
Thank you.
I also like the description of the wanting to hum lullabies, but all that comes out is the crow call, bone echo, the spell of not dying. I like that imagery as well.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm disabled and I've had 32 surgeries now over the course of my life. And I spend a lot of time looking out windows at crows while I am recuperating and doing all the PT. So that's how that spell of not dying came about.
Wow.
The crows, that was my wife's spirit animal.
I love the crows.
She had a thing about crows.
And the ravens. I did some wildlife rehab in California and I worked with ravens and they are so smart and cool. But I still have a real sweet spot for the crows, even though they're a little more, I guess they're the punk rockers of the bird world, maybe.
Right. Yeah, she was really into crows.
They're magical.
Yeah, she was disabled too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think nature and the wildlife can be so healing for those of us who are disabled in any way, actually. If you are having a bad day or you haven't had sun all winter and you've got a happy light, but you really want to get outside, and spend some time.
So tell us about your book.
I was nervous to put out a first book. So a little backstory. I've written since I was a kid. And I had a lot of adults tell me that they didn't like me writing about things that happened that they were part of and that you can't make a living being a poet and you'll be poor.
That's true.
Yeah, so I never showed my work, but I kept writing just for myself. So I also didn't really edit. So about 5 years ago, my partner saw my big box of 10,000 pieces of paper and he's like, I think you should put some of these out there and just see what happens. And I decided I'd try like a Facebook writing page because I thought if anyone's going to come for me or tell me how horrible it is, it's going to be in social media comments. So let's just get it over with, right?
Truth.
And I actually didn't get any of that. And so I thought I want to do a book, but I was nervous because I'd never done a book by myself. And so I thought I'm going to do an anthology and choose some of my favorite writers and see if they'll do a book with me, knowing that I'm going to be using that experience to learn how to do a book as I go. And halfway through, I had a publisher reach out and they wanted it. And I was like, wow, okay, very cool. And then I lost the publisher and I was like, oh, crap. But then I got to keep all the money and send it to the bird sanctuary. So I was like, this worked out. But it's called Caw, Poetry by a Murder of Writers.
I love that.
That's good.
There's 3 chapters, birth, life, and death. And I asked each poet to write 3 poems to the level of their own darkness. I had one reviewer who said my foreword made it seem I was going to be a little more goth, a little more dark, because that's me. But I asked them to each write to their level of darkness. And there's a beat poet laureate in there. There's lyrical poets. There's my friend who writes poetry, but is also a journalist. And there are poets from all over the world. My friend, Quinox from Belgium. She's an amazing poet. And all the proceeds go to the Ohio Bird Sanctuary. I love going down there and giving them a check because they have an aviary where you get these little cups of food and they have all kinds of birds that come and feed. And sometimes you'll get surprised by a gull or a rooster last time.
That's a bird.
So a lot of the poems, and not just birth, life, and death, but I asked them to incorporate birds in some way, whether that's metaphor, however they wanted to do that.
Nice.
And I think it came out very interesting and I like it. Now I am working on my own full-length book. It's going to be called Comfort Chaos.
Okay.
Oh, another good title.
Yeah.
And there will be birds hidden all over that thing too.
Matt and I have just been published in an anthology where the proceeds go to feed the children.
Lovely. Very nice. Someone did come and make not a mean comment, but kind of like a not great comment on my writing page. And a local writer here who's big into haiku, Joshua, he works at the library, and he came in and he was like, "You don't know who you're talking to. Stasha donates all the proceeds to this bird sanctuary. You don't know how punk rock that is." And I was like, yeah, that's punk rock. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It just worked out really well. I actually went to the bird sanctuary and had a one-on-one with their vulture named Elliot before the book came out and learned they don't have vocal cords.
No, they hiss.
Yeah. And when he got treats, he did this little happy gurgle. He has the attention span of a 2-year-old. Also, the black-headed vultures cannot smell.
Not like the turkey vultures. Yeah.
They follow the turkey vultures. That's how they find food.
And they push the turkey vultures aside. You're right.
Yeah.
We've had a few in our yard and, 4 or 5 black vultures and the turkey vultures sitting there waiting.
Yeah, it's just a cool place.
Vultures are cool. I like them. They clean up the yard pretty good.
In California, I would have said my favorite bird was the raven because I was working with them and there's just a ton on the beach and they're great. But since I've moved here, it's like the vultures are everywhere. One day I was writing in the backyard and I looked, there's 13 vultures in our tree. They stayed for 3 days just mating.
We had an incident where canoeing down the Little Miami River and we reached a narrow spot and on both sides the trees were just loaded with turkey vultures. And it was like really freaky. So I said, don't puke on me, Do you have black vultures up there yet?
I see them when I'm on the freeway frequently. I've had those in my yard, but I've not seen them here since.
They're kind of, I don't want to say rare up there.
I think they're passing through.
I moved here 50 years ago and there were no black vultures. There's like a small corner in southwestern Ohio, on the books, but now they're prevalent.
And Ohio doesn't really have ravens because the farmers killed them off. But 2 years ago, the first raven's nest was spotted in Ohio with 2 ravens. So they could potentially be making a comeback.
I have a raven sight in here. I was at my son's yard, went for my daughter-in-law to come out. We were going someplace. The storm front had come through and I look up and there's a raven. And I watched it enough to get enough detail. Like, yeah, that's a raven. It was soaring. It had the wedge-shaped tail, the whole thing. So I have a raven sighting in Ohio.
That's awesome. Yeah. So one day I was in here trying to work and the bird noise was so loud I couldn't even hear my own thoughts. And I went outside and there were hundreds of some bird that I didn't know what it was. So I had the Audubon app and all that. And I hit it. Rusty blackbirds.
Rusty blackbirds. Okay.
Hundreds hung out in our yard for like 6 hours, took off. I've never seen them before or since.
Years ago, we had a situation where like a family spat was going back. I had 3 sons and everybody's like chattering to each other. All of a sudden, the birds came in, grackles, a flock of grackles just dropped in our yard. It's like, shut everybody up. It was just like so cool.
I love the grackles and the starlings, but I can hear my partner, like we have a hawk nest in the backyard. And whenever their babies fledge, they hang out on our fence to try to pick off our bird feeders. And my partner's like, get the starlings and the grackles. Come on. I'm like, oh, I think they're so pretty, though.
They're beautiful.
And then when I look through the binoculars and the sun hit them, they have these patterns and colors. And it was almost like they had
starling. They look like starshine. Yeah.
They had like galaxies on their feathers or
they're beautiful.
It also reminded me of henna art that
Okay.
people have on their hands. I don't know how you could not like them, but yes.
Okay, let's get back to poetry. I'll talk birds all day with you. That's no problem here.
If you haven't realized, my poetry and birding are kind of very interweaved.
I think that's neat, though. I wanted to ask, too, do you have any social media things that you want people to know about?
Yes, I'm on Facebook under Stasha Strange and Instagram. You can also find me at stashastrange.com. I prefer if people go to the website because I'm in a lot of anthologies and journals, and I list all the different ones there so that you can see the different style of poems. When I started, I didn't realize that most places want unpublished works. So now I only put stuff up once it's published, which the first year I failed and put stuff up all the time, but I learned.
And sometimes people don't mind if it's just been on Facebook. Some people don't want it even on social media. So that varies, but I do know what you mean. You got to kind of be careful where you're posting stuff if you're going to use it in the future.
Yeah, that's a good thing for beginners to know because nobody told me that. And then they were like, wait, you have that on a blog, so that's considered published. I'm like, my own Facebook is, oh.
Right. Yeah.
Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll be published, maybe not.
Yeah, we're working on putting our own joint book together of poetry featuring the poems that we shared on the first 50 episodes of this podcast.
Oh, that's amazing.
So the goal is to have it out by the end of the year.
Did you become a poet because of your father?
I did. If you go back and listen to episode 1, I talk about that a little bit, where I share my poem, The Two Men Who Inspired Most, which were Phil Burgio and Robert Frost. They were both some of my earliest inspirations. But Phil did a lot of writing when I was a kid, publishing in the local newspaper to win a contest that took us to the movies for a year. I think he did that twice. And he was published in an anthology back then.
Christmas poems, yeah.
And so that kind of inspired me. And then, you learn a little bit through school. But as I was learning in school, Phil was also writing. And I just thought that was neat. He had an old word processor that we would fiddle around with and do some poetry on. And I didn't take off as my own poet as an adult until like junior year of high school. But my early roots were inspired by Phil.
Very cool.
He wrote a poem for me about, the one he read. I got it hanging up on the wall in the living room. Episode 1? Check out episode 1.
I'll check it out. I'm getting my notes here.
It's like a 7-minute episode. It'll be nice and quick. No guest on that episode. Phil was the guest for that episode.
Well, or you tricked him and then he was the co-host.
Well, how great is that to be able to do a podcast with one of my poetic heroes, That's amazing for me.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Got another one for us.
I do. It's a little different. This one is called Unframed Shadow. We were chasing inspiration across marble seas, my shadow and me. We crossed Monet-kissed lavender fields, lingered in a warped dolly garden, stood beneath a Van Gogh sky spinning in cobalt. We visited the 9 muses, those whispering sisters of delight, of pleasure, of bright, unbearable vision. I paused to rest on a cloud high in the sky, but my shadow wandered off. To my horror and my delight, I followed, creeping behind as he studied pre-Raphaelite wonders, scaled gilded ceilings my eyes could never quite reach. I waited in a field of silhouettes. He returned, but not to me. He climbed a gallery wall, slipped over the edge of a golden frame. Where once hung a single portrait, now stood 2. My shadow became a silhouette, flat and eternal. He refused to return. No amount of pleading could pull him back. And now I go on, unframed by shadow, though I visit him from time to time. Stasha Strange.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
I like that. What museum gave you the inspiration for that?
I had writer's block for 3 months, and I was at the Cleveland Museum of Art, and there was a silhouette exhibit.
Been there a whole lot of times.
And I never go there without paying respects to the muses, ever. But this is the time that my partner's like, did you know that there's a secret bench up in this hallway so you can actually sit above the muses in that whole open gallery? And I was like, no, I didn't. And when we were walking up, my shadow was just behaving very odd on the wall because of the different textures. And I just started writing about that and turned into this.
Did you notice the Rodin statue is kind of like damaged because some knucklehead years ago bombed it and damaged it?
Yes, my partner did tell me about that because funny enough, when he came to visit me in the Bay Area, I took him to Stanford campus to see the Rodin Sculpture Garden. So then he was like, here's our Rodin. It got bombed. I was like, what?
It's like the knuckleheads throwing paint on a Mona Lisa. Or soup. There was soup.
By the way, I've been to the Louvre. I love the Louvre.
Fantastic, because I love it. I was there too.
I could only go for 2 days and I could spend 2 years in that place. But the Mona Lisa's behind glass anyhow.
Yeah, but still, it's just the idea, the thought of it.
But I was just shocked at how small she was.
I got to go right up front because I was there with my sister and I'm pushing her in a wheelchair. Okay. And the security went like this, motions over, put us right in front of everybody on the other side of the barrier. So I got to see it up close, and it is small. But the first time I saw it was at Washington. It was on tour, and it was one of those like, that's small.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it is small.
I wasn't expecting it to be the size it was, and it was amazing to see it, though. But what I loved the most about being at the Louvre was seeing all the different kinds of artists who come and set up and work out of the museum.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go write poems, my partner's a musician, so he brings his headphones and one of his synths, and we'll just be sitting there, I'm writing, and he's making music. And I wish we saw more of that in the museums here in America. It's kind of, It doesn't seem like it's as accepted, or I don't know. I don't see a lot of it here.
Well, this year, my granddaughter had one of her artwork at the Cincinnati Museum. They featured some high school kids. They had like a gallery. So she was one of the participants. I was really proud of that. Yeah, the Louvre is something else.
Yeah.
Very cool. And this poem reminded me, you talked about how your shadow was acting funny or dancing on the wall. It reminded me of one of my poems called The Lonely Shadow of the Poet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was musing about my shadow against the wall, and it inspired me to write a poem. That's shared somewhere in one of our episodes, maybe episode 5, I can't remember, or episode 6.
Now I want to write a poem about artwork. Toulouse-Lautrec is one of my favorites.
All right, well, before we move on, is there anything else you want to say about your poetry or your poetic journey?
It's evolving, and I've had a bit of writer's block lately because I went from never editing and writing just for myself to learning about forms I'd never heard about, learning how to edit. And I feel like my voice is a little stuck between, the beat poets here got me into free verse. Oh, and it is very freeing. But I took a class with Ron Whitehead. He's the U.S. Beat Poet Laureate. He lives in Kentucky. And he said something that just so resonated with me. He also got a degree in poetry. And he said, because you have to learn all the rules so you know the right way to break them. And I said, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like it's evolving, but I don't know what that's going to be yet.
Yeah, I think that definitely helps. That reminds me of when I was taking music theory classes. They would say, oh, yeah, in the first 2 years, you learn all the rules. And then after that, you learn how to break them. So I think that's true with poetry. It's good to have that solid background of where poetry came from and all the forms, and then take it and make it your own.
Yeah, I definitely have been reading too much social media because I love Shakespeare, always loved Shakespeare, but now I'm in a Shakespeare class and I was like, woo, this old English is getting tough for me to read because I'm reading so much text speak. It's like I've almost lost some of that.
Yeah.
It's been interesting diving back into that. And the teacher even said, please don't go find a version that's not written like this. Please read it in the original language that was used.
I love Shakespeare, but I would rather watch it because that's what you're supposed to do instead of read it.
Yes.
Yeah, I really do like Shakespeare.
I've been watching some because each week we do a different play, but also working on the final. And I chose to do Othello through the lens of a feminist lens. So this week was like 12th Night, Othello, 12th Night. And I was like, oh, this is too much. I'm going to have to watch a video so that I can get in. And I was like, wasn't David Tennant in one of these? Because if David Tennant's in one of them, I'm definitely going to have to watch.
Kenneth Branagh is good in Shakespeare, too.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember which one David Tennant's in, but yeah, the teacher even finally said, if you want to watch videos along with this, yes, but do not keep you from reading the original written word for our assignments. I said, all right.
Two of my favorite ones, movies, is with Kenneth Branagh, Henry V and Much Ado About Nothing.
To check them out. It actually made me wonder, how with the Bible, my friend was like, what is this dumbed down psalm that someone read at this event she was at? And I said, wait, what are you talking about? And what she was talking about was the difference from the Psalms between the King James Version and a New American Standard. And while I've been reading the Shakespeare, I'm like, is there like a New American Standard version of Shakespeare somewhere? Probably.
Got to go with the original.
Yeah, always.
I'm old-fashioned. I'm very old-fashioned.
All right, guys, as we wrap things up, we want to let our listeners know we are grateful that you've taken the time to tune in. We hope you're enjoying the poetry shared here, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast and share it with others. If you would like to support You're the Poet and what we're doing here, there are a couple of ways to help. You can find links on our website to our Buy Me a Coffee patron site, as well as our You're the Poet store, where you can buy You're the Poet merchandise and share your love of poetry with the world. Thank you for your support as we continue to grow. Please check out our website and various social media outlets to keep up to date with You're the Poet. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and our website, you'rethepoet.com. Until next time, Phil, thanks for joining us.
I enjoyed this one.
Stasha, thank you for being our guest.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.